one of the precepts of our approach is that you get first click free from Google, first click free from social media sites like Facebook and Twitter and the blogosphere. So we want our content to be distributed. We want to maintain our journalistic influence. We want to be a part of the internet. So we don't think that it's a very good idea to cut yourself off from that. We think that's harmful actually to your business and to journalism.
So do you think it would be suicidal to do that?
To put all your content behind a paywall, to remove it from search engines, to remove it from the blogosphere, yeah, I think that would be fairly suicidal to your business.
The New York Times has announced instead that from January next year, it'll introduce a tiered system. Casual users will get access to its website free. Heavier users will be required to pay. It calls it a metered model.
You can visit the New York Times twice a month, 3 times a month, even perhaps almost every day, and never get charged for content. But if you're a really loyal user and you go every day, read multiple pages, the type of person who we think should be paying, should be subscribing, then we'll ask you to subscribe. And we think that will work.
Here at home, the first News Limited website to start charging for access is likely to be The Australian's. Editor-in-Chief Chris Mitchell says it won't be following the example of the Times in Britain. Instead, it'll model itself on the Wall Street Journal, which has one of the most lucrative newspaper websites in the world. You have to pay to get complete access, but a lot of general news is free.
Well, my view would be for my paper, the Journal, Wall Street Journal model is a good hybrid, that you have access to your site for some parts of it and for those things that are generally happening, but the things that you think are unique, the drivers really of the paper, the things, for instance, that we might be pushing and have to ourselves in the paper, they will be behind the paywall.
And would that be an expensive paywall?
I think we're not sure about price yet. I think we're still researching it. But we have, as a company here in Australia, done quite a bit of research about people's willingness to pay. And we think people will pay. I think a lot of people won't pay, but then again, we're in a reasonably rarefied market at the Oz, and I think our people will, yeah.
It's the question that every newspaper in the world is wrestling with. How many people will pay and how much? Frederick Filou reckons the answers are not many and probably not enough.
If you take a 25-year-old person right now, he or she won't want to pay for news whatsoever. I mean, the idea of having to pay for news for a young person is just stupid. But on the other hand, I mean, if you take the more senior audience, which is going to be more affluent, more older and more educated, this segment of audience will be willing to pay. Unfortunately, it will represent a niche market versus the previous bulk market it was 20 years ago. The best informed people will be elderly, affluent, educated people. That's it.
So basically a sort of class-based news system, is that what you're saying?
A total class-based system, yeah.
Well, you could argue that there's nothing new in that. Quality news, investigative journalism and the like has always been aimed at an educated elite. Its future, many hope and believe, lies not in traditional websites, but in applications specially designed for products like the tablet computer. At the unveiling of Apple's iPad earlier this year, the New York Times demonstrated an app it had been working on for just 3 weeks.
From the front page, you can easily flip through sections, tap into articles, or we can skip ahead to my favorite section to see today's latest stories.
The product is very satisfying in this form. You know, you're getting display with pictures, you're getting layout, you're getting headlines that aren't designed for search engine optimization but actually have puns and traditional journalistic values in them. You know, the product will be able to sustain video, so instead of just having a still picture, you'll be able to have a click on a video on your device eventually.
Yeah, it's great to see ski cross making it into the Olympics in 2010.
I think these are pretty attractive and much more traditionally journalistic.
And what we think will happen is that as more of these devices proliferate, our product gets better and better, more convenient, easier to use, more powerful, then a minority of our users will pay, and that will be enough to have this dual revenue stream of subscription and advertising that I think will ultimately be successful.
It's not just high-end newspapers like the New York Times that are looking to tablet computers for salvation. Apple's iPad has received mixed reviews from early users. But Time Inc. recently produced this mock-up of what its magazine Sports Illustrated might look like on the tablet computer of the very near future.
Next, you might want to skip back to the World Series.
Because suddenly you have a great interface, which is by many times better than the mobile phone. So you will be able to flip through magazines and to have a really good user experience. The second thing, which is in my view the most important, is you might be able to have finally a friction-free transaction system, because the beauty of the iPod, and it is the reason why it has been such a success, that coupling with the iTunes system, suddenly you have a kind of one touch, one click ability to purchase for one piece of song.
Instead of single songs, you'll be asked to pay to download a whole newspaper or magazine as a package. But Frederick Filou doesn't believe that either paywalls or iPads can save the traditional mainstream newsroom employing hundreds of professional journalists.
Yes, I think the era of big news cathedral is over, and we will have hard time to actually support good quality journalism, which is an issue for democracy itself.
Chris Mitchell, on the other hand, is an optimist. An electronic newspaper, he points out, will be far cheaper to produce than the hard copy version.
You know, when you remove the fixed costs in newspapers, they become much more viable. So if you think of a newspaper without paper and ink and petrol and trucks, you're taking out between 60 and 70% of the cost base. But I guess my view is that the core of the business is your ability to dream up ideas to create news. You know, the things that we chase each day, that we sit here every morning and we have an hour-long conference and we decide this is something we're going to allocate a lot of resources to. And I think the core of the newspaper that is involved in that will continue to be involved in that, because I think that is the thing that will create the uniqueness for us, whatever the mode of content delivery.
Well, one pessimist, two optimists, and an entire industry hanging perhaps on our reaction to one device. Extended versions of those interviews will be on our website shortly. You can download a vodcast and leave your own comments. Next week, we'll get back to critiquing the journalism that's on offer today while we wait for what tomorrow may bring. Join me again then.